Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen.
Episode 3.
Inside the cage. Inside the dungeon. Inside the belly of the beast.
Reviewing one of the most anticipated matchups of all time. ONE Championship versus the UFC.
Bro, for a second I was like, where are you going with this one, bro? Yeah, no, today we got a bit of a different episode, boys. We're kind of doing a slight comparison between ONE Championship, which is the biggest promotion in Asia, and then versus the UFC, which is obviously the biggest promotion in the world.
Yeah.
In the galaxy.
North America specifically, but yeah.
the biggest promotion that ever was.
Yeah, well, besides, I don't know, the Catholic Church.
Oh, I don't think that's a fight promotion.
Yeah, it's not.
But, yeah, we're going to do a comparison because this past weekend, there was a big ONE Championship event, ONE 169. And then there was also a UFC Fight Night where a former...
The biggest fight in UFC history, Neil Magny.
Yeah, so, and then there was a UFC Fight Night where a former 2-division ONE Championship fighter, Rainer de Ritter, made his UFC debut. So we'll get into that and do a little bit of a comparison between the UFC and ONE.
Including, I guess, the fight talent that you've seen in the UFC, and then obviously the fight talent in ONE just in general. And then obviously overall organizational just review and differences and, you know, where they compare.
Pros and cons.
Pros and cons to everything. You know
exactly.
What I mean?
The only thing that doesn't have cons is subbing to this channel.
100%.
So drop a sub.
Yeah, and liking this video. And maybe, I don't know, if you want to send me money through e-transfer, I also would accept.
There you go. So to start off, ONE 169. The event was originally supposed to take place in Atlanta, which I was hyped about because usually they take place in Singapore or they take place in Lumpini Stadium in Thailand. It's very,
rare.
It's rare for them to come to the U.S.
Yeah.
They've been 2 times before. This is supposed to be the third one. And at first, the card was stacked. They were announcing the fights, and you're like, "Whoa! This is awesome." Then this person gets injured. This person pulls out. Blah 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 blah. Next thing you know, the fight's not in Atlanta. It's back in Lumpini Stadium in Thailand. You're like, "Well, what the fuck's going on here?"
Yeah. And
then you get this. So one thing I noticed that stood out, and I watched all these fights live, as one does. Let's see what I did. As one does.
Yeah, there it is. A good one.
I watched them all live. There was not a single knockout the whole night.
Disappointing.
A lot of decisions and a couple submissions sprinkled in there.
Yeah.
But not a strong card for ONE, in my opinion.
Yeah. I mean, submissions also came in the Muay Thai fights, which was pretty... which is not even allowed.
They're breaking the rules here. But, the fights were okay. Rodtang fight, obviously Rodtang's probably one of the more notable stars in ONE Championship.
I'd probably say the biggest star in terms of just even if you don't know his name, you've seen videos of him.
Yeah. His fight was, I didn't like it too much. I didn't like that he missed weight. In the fight, it seemed like he was joking around. It didn't seem like he was trying to finish the guy.
Yeah. He
landed one good elbow in, I think, the 3rd or 4th round, which cut Jacob Smith open. But I was sort of like, okay, I wonder if he's still hungry for it. He's missed weight a couple of his last 2 fights, anyways. Point being, I was not impressed. But then the main event, Anatoly Malykhin, 3-division champion,
which is insane.
The first one in MMA history ever for a major organization. Middleweight, light heavyweight, and heavyweight champion.
Crazy because he was defending his heavyweight title too. He had to jump up from middleweight, which is, bulking isn't easy.
Well, the one thing is that ONE Championship, they do their weight classes a little bit differently.
That's true, yeah.
So middleweight in ONE is 205.
Yeah.
Light heavyweight's 225. And then heavyweight's just 225 to 265.
It's true.
So low key, I think he's probably a natural light heavyweight, and he just sort of like a 205 light heavyweight.
Yeah,
and he
yeah.
just like bulked up a bit. That's what I think.
Yeah, because they're cutting, like we'll get into this, but their cutting rules are different in terms of staying hydrated instead of dehydrating yourself like fucking an animal until you're damn near a skeleton.
But so he goes in and he's fighting Umar Kane, better known as Rug, who's a Senegalese wrestler. Going into this fight, he was 6-1. And he's kind of a fan favorite. Like, he's marketable. I mean, like, he just looks ginormous.
He's a huge dude.
Yeah.
Holy fuck. Like, massive.
He's big, but as far as the actual MMA skill set goes, you can tell that he's beating lower level competition just based on strength. And obviously, he has a wrestling background, but
pretty cool too. I mean, like, the Senegalese wrestling is pretty sick.
Oh yeah,
sick fucking background to come from.
It's definitely a unique background to come from for sure. But someone where it's like, if he were to jump into a heavyweight fight against a journeyman in the UFC or
he'd look a little
Bellator, PFL, I think he would be exposed. Very uneventful fight, split decision. Rug wins. And on one hand, you're happy for him. You're like, that's great. This guy changed his whole life.
Yeah.
Probably, I mean, we don't know how much these guys get paid because ONE Championship doesn't disclose it. But whatever
Decent
it is,
payday,
it's probably generational wealth for Senegal. Like, his family's probably laughing.
Possibly.
To the bank.
8th MMA fight too.
Yeah.
8th MMA fight is crazy to get a championship. That's like Alex Pereira numbers.
But then on the other hand, I thought it looked really bad for ONE Championship, where it's like your 3-division champion lost to a guy with 7 MMA fights. It's not a good look.
Nah, not at all.
It especially to a guy who's like he's a fan favorite. He's a cool guy, cool background, looks cool. He's big. You could see that he's not like a
top level MMA fighter. Yeah.
I couldn't have put it better myself.
Yeah.
So there's that.
That happened. That did happen.
That was ONE Championship. That was Friday night. Fast forward the clock to Saturday.
Yep.
We got a UFC Fight Night in the Apex. Neil Magny versus Carlos Prates.
I honestly think that was probably the least marquee matchup I've ever seen on a UFC Fight Night in my life.
Yeah, but you know what I'll say? From top to bottom, this was a really good fight night, despite it not having the name value.
Name value, yeah, okay. Name value.
It was like, I mean, when you're starting off on the prelims, we got a second round TKO, first round submission, first round knockout, first round knockout.
I mean, yeah, dude, viewership wise,
sprinkle a decision.
Tuned in. Dana's probably pissed because he put no name value on this and nobody fucking watched. And then they're like, damn, this is a fucking banger of a card.
Yeah. And in the co-main event for this, we had Rainer de Ridder, former 2-division champion and ONE Championship. He was the Dutchman. Middleweight and light heavyweight, and he was a Dutchman. The flying Dutchman.
He didn't revoke his Dutch citizenship.
Well, I mean, that's debatable. But he jumps into this with his only 2 losses being to Anatoly Malikin, who was the 3-division champ in ONE.
Yeah.
Go figure. The 3-division champ beat the 2-division champ.
A lot of division champions going on here.
Anyway, we'll talk about that. Comes in, he's fighting Gerald Meerschaert. GM3.
The man himself. Savvy vet.
There you go. And this is not a disrespect to GM3. I think he's one of those guys where, I mean, his record speaks for itself. Exactly. Yeah. But is he a contender for the belt? No.
Unless
at least as it stands right now, like, he's shown that he can beat a lot of guys. Like even his last fight round, Edmund Shabazian. At one point before he fought Derek Brunson, Edmund Shabazian was like, he was like the golden kid.
He was next up.
Everyone was like, oh, this guy's next.
Yeah.
And obviously, you know, he's been on a little bit of a decline, but still like a very, very high level guy.
Yeah.
Meerschaert submits him.
Yeah.
So you're going into this, and I think Gerald Meerschaert is almost, I would like to call him like, he's one of those guys who's a gatekeeper of the top 15.
He's like a borderline top 15 guy.
Like he's probably a top 20 if we're like being true.
I would put him right there at 18.
I was going to say 17, but we're around the same point. Goes in, fights DeRitter, and DeRitter just looks nervous on the feet. Yeah. Like in the first round, they're going, and it's almost like every time Meerschaert, and it's not like anything like huge combinations or huge shot. He's just throwing like, you know, ones and twos. DeRitter, it's almost like he's cowering away. Like he's like, like it looked a little bit, it didn't look good.
Yeah.
Put you that way. DeRitter starts mixing in takedowns. You know, there's a few scrambles, whatever. And then at the very end of the first round, DeRitter knocks him down.
Yeah.
And I thought he almost knocked, when I was watching it live, I thought he knocked him out. I was
Dude,
like,
it's fucking power. Like that was like crazy like starts it off with an elbow and then just fucking 1-2 left hook. Fucking Meerschaert falls, slams his head on the canvas.
Oh yeah. And then it goes into the second round and there's a lot more grappling exchanges, wrestling.
Yeah.
Still pretty even. Mm-hmm. Then it goes into the third round and it's like, oh my God. It's like these guys look dead.
Yeah.
They're both gassed. They're going at it. And then eventually DeRitter gets a sub late in round 3.
Yeah. Arm triangle. It was a tight squeeze. It was a cool sub, but I'd say it's good for his resume to submit somebody like Meerschaert, who's known for submitting people, especially at a high level.
And you can never knock a guy for submitting GM3, but you could tell like that was a tough fought battle. Like these guys, like it was neck and neck where you're like, okay, these guys are like, I'd honestly say this is a good representation. Like DeRitter is like, if Meerschaert's 18, DeRitter's 17.
Yeah. Do you think DeRitter breaks in as a former 2-time ONE championship? Do you think he breaks into the top 15 at middleweight?
I don't.
No?
I see like against Meerschaert, who's known for his submissions, he did not look comfortable on the feet.
Yeah.
And as bad as it is to say, like, because in reality, you'd think this is a nightmare matchup, but I think you put him in there against like a pure kickboxer like Shara Bullet.
Yeah.
I think he gets knocked out before he takes him down and subs him.
Do you think?
I think so. Actually, if someone's going to clip that and say I'm like stupid, but I'm just saying it's like when I saw that,
those chances.
When I saw that, I was like, okay, I didn't like what I saw. Mm-hmm. And it doesn't look good. Once it goes back to this thing, it doesn't look good for ONE championship where it's like you have a former 2-division champion just barely by the hair on his nuts scraping by a victory over Gerald Meerschaert. Not even a top 15 fighter. It's like it just really shows you like
the difference in skill.
The difference in skill, the difference in quality. And that's not to say that ONE championship doesn't have good fighters.
No, not at all. It's just they don't have the same amount, I'd say.
The roster's nowhere near as deep.
It's true. Like we were talking about this before, the difference between the two is if you go on to the UFC main ranking fighter like chart, you're seeing every division, 15 fighters, and those are just the 15 that are in the top 15. There are plenty of fighters that have name value that aren't even in top 15s right now.
100%.
If you go to ONE championship, you're seeing only 5 fighters in the rankings, and a lot of them are in different rankings. Like you're saying, you don't get to a triple champ status without being a great fighter, but it also has to do with the organization. You're really only naming 5 contenders per division. That's when you start, people start moving divisions when they, it's easier to clear out. If Volk had only 5 fighters in featherweight, he might as well have gone to fucking welterweight. You know what I mean?
Well, and then going into that too, the divisions aren't as deep and you see a lot of overlap. But also, you see a lot of people that just get to title shots right away. Like Anatoly Malakin, for example, who was the triple champion. He only had 6 fights in one championship as a whole, like since he made his debut.
It's crazy.
So it's like, obviously, you're not fighting for a belt on your debut. Mm-hmm. So it's like, okay, like
immediately after.
Yeah, it's like back, like before, to be a double champ, it like meant something.
Yeah. Especially,
I mean, it still does mean something, but like it was unheard of before. Like obviously, you know, it started off with you had McGregor who did it, even though he never defended any of his belts. Like it was still sick at the time. Like you're like, oh my god. And then GSP, after he had retired from welterweight, came back, beat Michael Bisping. You know, became the middleweight
DC
champion
as well.
DC, like, and you see these guys where it's like, okay, these are legends of the game. These are like people you could put on your Mount Rushmore of MMA.
Yeah. And you're not doing the same thing with the guys in like ONE. And the difference is like back in the day, the guy who I guess challenged the most for status as a legend without even fighting in the UFC was Fedor. Mm-hmm. And then you actually had Ben Askren move from ONE to the UFC, taking away a literal legend of the game just because he didn't sell fights. Like obviously we're talking about Mighty Mouse. He didn't sell fights, but I don't think that should have mattered. He honestly had a great career in ONE as well. But the thing is, you know, you take somebody from ONE who's he was just welterweight champ there, right? If I'm not mistaken.
I believe so.
Yeah, I don't think he was a double champ there, but still, a great fighter. Ben Askren at the time gets one controversial sub over Robbie Lawler, and then gets knocked out in 5 seconds. And then the trajectory is down from there. He gets knocked out by Jake Paul, yada yada yada. That's not to say Ben Askren isn't a great fighter in his prime, but it's just the difference is pretty clear when you're looking at MMA in UFC and MMA in ONE, because ONE offers so much more. That's the biggest pro to ONE is if you like watching striking, like ONE is the place to go. Like Muay Thai, like holy shit, these guys throw crazy volume. It's insanely violent. Like people who like watching people slug it out in the UFC would love watching ONE because there's so many different stand-up fights that literally are just stand-up fights, you know?
Well, and that's just the thing where it's like ONE Championship likes to call themselves the home of martial arts. And that's where I'll agree. It's like you go into ONE Championship, in a single fight card, they'll have submission grappling. Just 1 10-minute round, first person to get to sub wins. Yeah. There's no sub, most legitimate attempts. Yeah. So that's why when you have something like that, you don't see like butt scooters who are just stalling. You get 2 guys who are like, I'm going to try to rip this guy's arm off.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, exactly.
And then it's like, you got the Muay Thai. And they do the Muay Thai in MMA gloves, which makes it even sicker.
Yeah.
Then they have actual kickboxing.
Yeah.
Then they have the MMA. Mm-hmm. What I think the big problem with ONE is, one we already got into, is there's not a deep roster. Mm-hmm. But then 2, I think when you get into the higher weight classes, they don't have the talent there.
Yeah.
It's like, for example, Mighty Mouse went over to ONE. He became a champ, but then he actually lost to Adriano. I forget if his last name is Morales or Marias, but lost to a guy. Need to a downed opponent, which you're allowed to do over there.
Yeah.
Difference in rule set. But he lost. Then he got it back, and he beat the guy twice and then retired.
Yeah, which is a hell of a way to go out. And he makes great content on YouTube.
Yeah. But so it's like you see that. It's like, okay, so in the lighter weight divisions, they do have good talent because we're talking about Mighty Mouse, someone who had like 11 title defenses in the UFC.
Literally the go-to flyweight of all time.
Literally.
Easily.
But, so there's that. The other problem with ONE is I think they're not good at building fighters up.
Yeah. It's not as much, they don't use as much controversy in their way, which is good. They're more of take a respectful approach to martial arts, which is, it's a respectable way to do it. It's just the thing in the UFC that sells so aggressively, which is why Conor McGregor became the biggest MMA star in history, is because he talked a lot of shit and he was funny. And people saw that and were drawn to that in his press conferences. And that's not to say ONE isn't good at, still bringing the personality side to their fighters. Like if you go on their social media, like they're doing the same stuff the UFC does. Like their interviews are kind of creative. They get you to like their fighters. Like it gives them insight into like what they're like as people. But it's not the same confrontational style that the UFC did with like DC and John Jones, and they literally wanted to kill each other at press conferences and stuff, which is once again respectable way to, you know, play out their organization and just have fights shown. But it also is the reason that the UFC became so much bigger, you know, and especially in North America, because people sometimes thrive off negativity.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the thing is that one championship doesn't build fighters. Like a lot of UFC fighters that are like big, like even for example, it's like you look at Ngannou. No one knew who Ngannou was before the UFC.
Yeah.
Then by the time he had left the UFC and they had the falling out, now he's doing all these big boxing fights.
Yeah.
Now he's over in PFL. They're creating fighters. Like even for example, like Mighty Mouse. If Mighty Mouse never fought in the UFC, you wouldn't know who he was.
Yeah, it's true. They give him the platform.
But what one championship does is I noticed that they'll just sign fighters that are already popular.
Yeah.
Like I shouldn't say the one.
The two.
No, the two people who won championship marketed very, very well was Rod Tang, who I'm pretty sure was already pretty big in the Muay Thai scene, but like they really brought him on a global stage.
100%.
And Stamp Fairtex, who's like the biggest like female Thai fighter. But besides that, it's like, okay, it's like, yeah, you signed Mighty Mouse. You signed John Lineker. He was in the UFC before.
He was good. He was good.
It's like then you're signing like Takeru, who was like a Japanese kickboxer from K1. He was a triple champ over in K1.
Yeah.
And it's like you're sort of signing like made men.
Made men.
You know what I mean? Where it's like, but they're not doing the building. So that's what I think they could work on. And honestly, this is going to be a hot take, but like in my mind, I'm sort of like, I think one could like just scrap the MMA and just stick with Muay Thai
and kickboxing
and bring it to like a real international scale.
I mean, it's true. I mean, the thing is, they've already done a pretty good job internationally. I think the only thing about the competition with the UFC is just how much bigger it is in North America for the UFC to do. For North America, it's just like a huge scene in terms of like, I don't know, social media and presence like that. They already have the market in Asia. Like they've taken that over. Getting more events in America, even coming to Canada, Europe. Exactly. You could tap in to even where the UFC is now, because, you know, they have a ton of potential. Like you're saying, like if they stuck with Muay Thai, but even if they stick with MMA, like they have something huge going. There's a reason we're talking about this as
no, exactly. I think, and actually, you know what? I take it back. I don't think they should like. You know, I think they do Muay Thai and kickboxing way better. But I don't think they should scrap MMA. But I think, you know what? I think they just need to go on a signing spree, sign a bunch of guys, get a lot more events going. Like they have the Friday fight nights. Every Friday they stream it on YouTube for free.
Yeah.
Most of the fights are Muay Thai. Start throwing more MMA fights in the Friday fight nights. Just sign more guys, get them fighting, build up some highlight reels. You do some character development, make them cool, and then start having events outside of Lumpini Stadium in Singapore.
Yeah,
because no one wants to watch it. The time zone difference. It's like yeah, you're doing the Friday fight nights. It's like cool. I'm watching that on my lunch break at work, but it's like you know, on a Friday, I'm not gonna watch some fights at 11 in the morning. Like it's not gonna happen. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I don't know. That's what I think. And then
very passionate about this.
No, because I actually
time Friday.
Because I really liked one championship, and this weekend let me down.
Yeah.
It's like it just sort of exposed it that like they're really levels behind as far as the level of competition, at least in MMA. The UFC, they should just keep doing what they're doing, man. They're on top for a reason, right?
Yeah, it's true. I mean, there's not really like, obviously, you know, there's flaws to everything, but in terms of just organizational wise, like they have a monopoly over MMA right now, and like you don't do that without doing things right for most of the time.
Yeah.
And yeah, there's a reason we created this entire show is because we watch a lot of it. So yeah, to wrap it up, I mean, ONE has a lot of potential. UFC is still number one, obviously, but you know, we're excited for both promotions and just watch some fights, man.
Absolutely. And with that, I don't even know what I was going to say. I'm actually probably going to cut this from the video.
Yeah, no worries.
Thank you guys for watching. Like always, if you're not subscribed, drop a sub. 80% of our viewers aren't subscribed, so you know it would mean a lot.
Yeah. 90% of us here would like you to subscribe.
There you go. Drop a like, comment, subscribe, follow the Instagram. We'll see you guys next time.